The morning of Emily's wedding, I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my tie for the 5th time, trying to shake off the familiar feeling that had haunted me for 28 years. You know that sensation when you walk into a room and everyone's eyes slide past you like your furniture? That's been my entire life as Emily's older brother. Growing up, I learned early that there were 2 types of children in the Morrison household, Emily and everyone else. While I struggled through calculus and barely made the B honor roll, Emily breezed through advanced placement courses with a perfect GPA. When I joined the chess club, Mom gave me a distracted "that's nice, honey." When Emily made the cheerleading squad, we had a celebration dinner at the fanciest restaurant in town. I remember the day I got accepted into State University. I rushed home, acceptance letter clutched in my sweaty palm, bursting through the door with the biggest smile on my face. Mom was on the phone, and she held up a finger to silence me. "Yes, we're so proud of Emily's debate tournament win," she gushed to whoever was on the other end. "First place, can you believe it?" When she finally hung up and I showed her my letter, she patted my shoulder and said, "Good job, Edward. Emily, come show your brother your trophy." That was 17 years ago, but standing here now, about to head to my baby sister's wedding, I felt like that overlooked 10-year-old all over again. The invitation had arrived 3 months ago, heavy cream cardstock with gold embossing that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. "The honor of your presence is requested," it read, as if I was just another guest, rather than her only sibling. I'd tried to be involved in the wedding planning. Really, I had. But every suggestion I made was met with Emily's perfectly practiced smile and a gentle, "That's sweet, Eddie, but we've already decided on something else." The way she said we made it clear that we meant her fiancé James, and our parents, not me, never me. The drive to the venue took 45 minutes, giving me plenty of time to replay every slight, every dismissal, every moment I'd been pushed to the sidelines of my own family. The radio played some cheerful pop song about love and forever, and I turned it off. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Don't be late. Emily needs this day to be perfect." Not, "We can't wait to see you," or "drive safely," or even "see you soon." Just another reminder that Emily's needs came first, second, and third. The Rosewood Country Club looked like something out of a fairy tale when I pulled up. White roses climbed elaborate archways, silk ribbons fluttered in the breeze, and a string quartet was already warming up on the manicured lawn. I recognized the melody, Pachelbel's Canon, because of course Emily would choose the most traditional, perfect wedding song ever written. I found Mom near the entrance, directing the florist with the intensity of a military general. She was wearing a champagne-colored dress that I knew she'd bought specifically to complement Emily's wedding colors. When she saw me, her face broke into what I call her public smile, the one she uses for neighbors and distant relatives. "Edward, finally! Your father's inside helping James with his cufflinks. Emily's in the bridal suite, of course. Oh, and check in with the wedding coordinator about your seat. She has the list." Before I could respond, she was already hurrying off to handle some other crucial Emily-related task. I stood there for a moment, watching her go, wondering if she'd even noticed I'd gotten a haircut for the occasion. The wedding coordinator was a sharp-faced woman named Patricia, who looked at me over her clipboard like I was interrupting something vital. "Name?" she asked, even though I'd just told her I was the bride's brother. "Edward Morrison," I repeated, trying to keep the irritation out of my voice. She flipped through several pages, her perfectly manicured nail trailing down lists of names. "Ah, here you are. Table 12. "Table 12? I frowned. There must be some mistake. I should be at the head table with the family. Patricia's expression didn't change. "No mistake. The head table is for the wedding party only. Parents are at table 1, extended family at table 2, and you're at table 12. My stomach dropped. Table 12. I didn't need to check the seating chart to know that was probably somewhere near the kitchen doors or the bathrooms. "Can I speak with Emily about this?" "The bride is not to be disturbed before the ceremony," Patricia said with the finality of someone who dealt with far too many wedding day disasters. "Perhaps you can discuss it with your parents?" I found Dad helping James with his cufflinks, as promised. My future brother-in-law was everything Emily could have wanted, tall, conventionally handsome, with the kind of easy confidence that came from growing up wealthy. His family owned a chain of high-end restaurants, and he'd just been made regional manager at 29. "Edward," Dad said when he saw me, but his attention immediately returned to James's cuffs. "These vintage links are tricky. James's grandmother wore them to her wedding in 1952. "Dad, there's been some mix-up with the seating. I'm at table 12 instead of with the family." "Oh, that's not a mix-up," James said casually, checking his reflection in the mirror. "Emily wanted to keep the head table small, just the wedding party, you understand." I didn't understand at all, but I'm her brother. "Yeah, but you're not in the wedding party," James pointed out, as if this was the most logical thing in the world. "Emily said you weren't interested in being a groomsman." That was news to me. I'd never been asked. I opened my mouth to say as much when Dad clapped me on the shoulder. "Don't make a fuss, son. This is Emily's big day." Emily's big day. Of course it was. Every day had been Emily's big day for as long as I could remember. I wandered the venue for a while, watching the organized chaos of final preparations. The other groomsmen were James's friends from college, all wearing matching charcoal gray suits and laughing about some inside joke I'd never be part of. The bridesmaids fluttered around in sage green dresses, clutching their bouquets and taking selfies. Finally, I caught a glimpse of Emily through the cracked door of the bridal suite. She looked like a princess, honestly. Her dress was a stunning creation of lace and silk, her hair twisted into an elegant updo with baby's breath woven through it. She was laughing at something one of her bridesmaids said, and for a moment I felt that familiar pang of longing, not romantic, God no, but the desire to be included in that circle of light she seemed to carry with her everywhere. "Emily?" I knocked gently on the doorframe. She turned. and her smile dimmed, just a fraction, when she saw it was me. Eddie, you made it! As if there was any question I'd attend my only sister's wedding. Yeah, of course. Listen, about the seating arrangement. Oh my god, is there a problem with the seating? She pressed a hand to her chest dramatically. Patricia promised me everything was handled. Well, yeah, there's a problem. I'm at table 12. I'm not even sitting with Mom and Dad. Emily's eyes darted to her bridesmaids, then back to me. She lowered her voice. Eddie, please don't do this today. Do what? Ask why I'm being seated with the +1s and coworkers? You're being dramatic, she said, turning back to the mirror to adjust her veil. The head table is for the wedding party. Mom and Dad are at their own table because they're hosting. It's standard wedding etiquette. And your brother gets shuffled off to table 12? Is that standard too? She spun around, and for the first time in years, I saw real irritation crack through her perfect facade. What do you want me to say, Edward? That I should rearrange the entire seating chart an hour before my wedding because you feel left out? You're 28 years old. Stop acting like a child. The words hit me like a physical blow. A child. She was calling me a child for wanting to sit with my own family at her wedding. I stood there for a moment, speechless, while her bridesmaids pretended to be very interested in their phones. You know what? Forget it, I said, backing away from the door. Enjoy your perfect day, Emily. I heard her call after me, but I was already walking away. The ceremony was starting in 30 minutes, and I needed air. I found myself in the parking lot, leaning against my car, trying to decide if I should just leave. The gift I'd bought them, an expensive crystal vase from their registry that had taken me 3 weeks to save up for, sat in my back seat, wrapped in silver paper with an elaborate bow I'd paid extra for. My phone buzzed. Mom, where are you? Ceremony starting soon. I could have left. Should have. Maybe. But something made me stay. Call it morbid curiosity or misplaced hope that maybe, just maybe, something would be different this time. The ceremony itself was beautiful. I'll give Emily that. She walked down the aisle to a violin version of 1,000 Years, Dad on her arm, both of them beaming. Mom cried prettily into a lace handkerchief. James looked appropriately stunned by his bride's beauty. The whole thing could have been ripped from a Pinterest board titled Perfect Autumn Weddings. I sat in the 4th row, behind James's extended family and Emily's college friends. During the vows, I watched my parents in the front row. Dad had his arm around Mom, and she was leaning into him, both of them radiating pride. Had they ever looked at me that way? I tried to remember my college graduation, but all I could recall was them leaving early because Emily had a dance recital. Do you, Emily Grace Morrison, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? The officiant asked. I do, Emily said, her voice clear and confident. Of course she did. Emily always knew exactly what she wanted and how to get it. After the ceremony, during the cocktail hour, I mingled half-heartedly with distant relatives who seemed surprised to see me. Edward, I didn't know Emily had a brother. It was a comment I heard more than once, which told me everything I needed to know about how often I came up in family conversations. I was nursing my second whiskey when Aunt Linda cornered me. He was Mom's sister and had always been the black sheep of the family, divorced twice, childless by choice, and unapologetically blunt. Table 12, huh? She said, raising an eyebrow. I saw the seating chart. You saw that? Honey, I'm at table 11. We're practically in the parking lot. She took a sip of her martini. Your sister's always been a piece of work, but this is a new low, even for her. You think so? I was genuinely surprised. Everyone else seemed to think I was overreacting. Linda snorted. Please. I've watched that girl manipulate your parents since she could talk. Remember when you won that science fair in middle school? I did remember. It was one of my few academic victories, a project about renewable energy that I'd worked on for months. She threw a tantrum because the attention wasn't on her, Linda continued. Claimed she was sick, made your mom leave your celebration dinner early to take her to the emergency room. Funny how she made a miraculous recovery the next day. She was actually sick, I said automatically, even though doubt crept into my voice. Sure she was. Linda patted my arm. Just like she was sick during your high school graduation and your 21st birthday party. That girl's been stealing your thunder since day one, and your parents have been letting her. Before I could respond, the wedding coordinator appeared, ushering everyone into the reception hall. Time to find table 12. Table 12 was exactly where I'd expected it, tucked in a corner near the swinging doors to the kitchen. My table mates included James's secretary, a couple who were friends with James's parents but barely knew the bride and groom, Emily's hairdresser, and 3 +1s who looked as confused about their placement as I felt about mine. So, how do you know the happy couple? The secretary, a woman named Diane, asked politely. I'm Emily's brother, I said, watching her eyes widen in surprise. Oh, James never mentioned Emily had a brother. Of course he didn't. The reception began with the wedding party's grand entrance. Each couple was announced with great fanfare, walking in to thunderous applause. Emily and James entered last, to a standing ovation, her dress train sweeping dramatically behind her. They went straight to the head table, a long, elevated platform decorated with flowers and fairy lights, where they could survey their kingdom like royalty. I watched my parents at table 1, front and center, surrounded by James's parents and what looked like the most important guests. The speeches began, and one by one, the wedding party stood to share stories and well wishes. James's best man told a funny story about their college days. Emily's maid of honor gushed about what a perfect couple they were. Then my father stood up. I've been blessed with 2 children, he began, and I felt myself lean forward despite everything. But Emily has always been special. From the day she was born, she's brought nothing but joy and pride to our family. Watching her grow into the accomplished, beautiful woman standing before us today has been the greatest privilege of my life. He went on for 5 more minutes, detailing Emily's achievements, her grace, her intelligence. Not once did he mention me. Not once did he acknowledge that Emily's brother was even in attendance. When he raised his glass for the toast, I didn't lift mine. The woman next to me, one of the plus ones, whispered, "That was a bit odd, wasn't it, not mentioning his son?" I just shrugged, not trusting myself to speak. Dinner was served, some kind of chicken dish that had probably been described more eloquently on the menu. I pushed it around my plate, my appetite completely gone. The kitchen doors swung open every few minutes, waitstaff brushing past our table with barely an "excuse me." It was during the salad course that I overheard it. Emily had stepped away from the head table, and she was standing just outside the kitchen doors, hidden from most of the reception hall, but clearly visible from my corner seat. She was talking to her maid of honor, Rachel, and their voices carried. "God, James's mother is already driving me insane," Emily hissed. "She keeps asking when we're going to give her grandchildren. We've been married for literally 2 hours. She seems a bit intense," Rachel agreed. "Intense? She's a controlling nightmare. Did you see the face she made when I said we were honeymooning in Bali instead of visiting their lake house? And don't even get me started on the rehearsal dinner. She tried to hijack the entire thing with her suggestions." "At least she's not at your table tonight," Rachel offered. Emily laughed, but it wasn't her pretty public laugh. It was sharp, mean. Thank God for small favors. I smiled through her horrible toast about welcoming me to the family when really she's been trying to talk James out of marrying me for 2 years. The old bat actually told him I was too ambitious for a wife. Can you believe that? "What a witch," Rachel said. "She's going to be a nightmare grandmother too. All those passive-aggressive comments about my career, how I should focus on family now." Emily made air quotes with her fingers. "Like her whole identity isn't just being Mrs. Richardson and popping out babies. At least I have an actual life." They moved away, back toward the head table, but not before I saw who else had been within earshot. James's mother, Margaret Richardson, stood frozen by the bathroom entrance, her face pale. She'd heard every word. Margaret Richardson was the kind of woman who wore pearls to the grocery store and had her hair done every Thursday at 3 p.m. without fail. I'd met her briefly at the rehearsal dinner, where she'd seemed perfectly pleasant, if a bit formal. Now, watching her process what she'd just overheard, I saw her carefully composed face crumble for just a moment before she straightened her spine and walked back to her table. I should have felt bad for her. I did feel bad for her. But I also felt something else, a dark satisfaction that Emily's perfect facade had cracked, even if she didn't know it yet. The rest of dinner passed in a blur. The happy couple had their first dance to Perfect by Ed Sheeran, because of course they did. Then the floor opened up for everyone else. I watched from my corner table as my parents danced, as James's family danced, as the wedding party paired off and swayed to the music. No one asked me to dance. No one even seemed to remember I was there. It was during the father-daughter dance that things started to unravel. Dad and Emily were gliding across the floor to butterfly kisses when Margaret Richardson appeared at my table. "You're Edward, aren't you?" she asked, her voice steady despite what I knew she'd overheard. "Emily's brother?" "That's me, the forgotten sibling, relegated to table 12. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Mind if I sit? These shoes are killing me." "Please." I gestured to an empty chair. Margaret sat down gracefully, watching Emily and my father dance. "She's very beautiful, your sister." "She always has been. Beauty can hide a multitude of sins," Margaret said quietly. "I learned that with my first daughter-in-law." I looked at her in surprise. "James was married before?" "Oh no, his older brother. That marriage lasted exactly 18 months before she ran off with her personal trainer. But not before she'd convinced my son to cut us out of his life completely. We didn't speak for 3 years. That's awful." It was, but it taught me to pay attention to the signs, the little comments, the subtle manipulations, the way someone acts when they think no one important is watching. She paused, her eyes still on Emily. "Your sister doesn't like me very much, does she?" I could have lied, could have smoothed it over, but something about this woman's quiet dignity made me honest. "I don't think Emily likes anyone who might compete for attention or authority." Margaret nodded slowly. "I suspected as much. She's been perfectly charming to my face, of course. But I've noticed things. The way she redirects James whenever he mentions visiting us. The excuses for missing family dinners. The little jokes at my expense that aren't really jokes. Sounds familiar," I muttered. She turned to look at me fully then. "They put you at table 12. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. "Apparently, I'm not immediate family anymore." "That's ridiculous. You're her only sibling. Try telling her that." Margaret was quiet for a moment, then she leaned in conspiratorially. "Would you like to know a secret?" I raised an eyebrow. "James's grandmother's ring, the one he proposed with? I told him not to give it to her. It's been in our family for 4 generations, and I had a feeling, well, I suggested he buy her a new ring instead, something modern that suited her taste better." "Did he?" "He did. She has no idea that the 3-carat diamond on her finger is from Tiffany's, not from his great-grandmother's estate. The real ring is still in my safe." She smiled, and this time it was genuine. Call it insurance. Before I could respond, the music changed, and the DJ announced it was time for the bouquet toss. Margaret stood up. "It was nice talking to you, Edward. You seem like a decent young man. Don't let them convince you otherwise." She walked away, leaving me to process what had just happened. James's mother, the woman Emily had just called a controlling nightmare and an old bat, had been nothing but kind to me. More than that, she'd seen through Emily's act in a way my own parents never had. The bouquet toss was a production. Like everything else that night, Emily stood at the front of the crowd, her back to the eager group of single women, and counted dramatically. 1, 2, 3. She threw the bouquet high, and it sailed over the reaching hands to land directly in front of a woman I didn't recognize, probably one of James's cousins. Then came the garter toss. James made a show of sliding his hands up Emily's leg, waggling his eyebrows at the crowd while she giggled and pretended to be embarrassed. The single men gathered reluctantly, myself included, after Mom literally pushed me onto the floor with a hissed "participate." "Edward!" The garter flew through the air and, by some cruel twist of fate, hit me square in the chest. I caught it reflexively, and the crowd cheered while I stood there holding the lacy thing like it might bite me. "Looks like someone's getting married next," the DJ announced, and everyone laughed except me. I went back to table 12, shoving the garter in my pocket. The night was wearing on, and the older guests were starting to leave. Aunt Linda stopped by my table on her way out. "Hanging in there, kiddo?" "Barely." She squeezed my shoulder. "Don't let them get to you. Some of us see what's really going on here." After she left, I noticed Margaret Richardson making rounds, saying her goodbyes. When she hugged Emily, my sister's smile was picture perfect, but I saw her roll her eyes as soon as Margaret's back was turned. The mask was slipping more and more as the night went on, and the drinks kept flowing. It was around 10 o'clock when things really went sideways. Emily had had quite a few glasses of champagne by then, and she was holding court near the bar with her bridesmaids. I'd gone to get another whiskey, my fourth or fifth, I'd lost count, when I heard her voice carrying over the music. "I'm just saying, the woman needs to back off. She's not the one who married James, I did. If she thinks she's going to be one of those overbearing grandmothers who shows up uninvited and rearranges my house, she's got another think coming. Boundaries are important," one of her bridesmaids agreed. "Exactly, like, I get it, your precious baby boy got married. But he's not a baby anymore, and I'm not going to let her treat him like one, or me like some kind of incubator for her grandchildren." I glanced around and spotted Margaret near the door, talking to her husband. She was too far away to hear this particular rant, thank God. But James was closer, getting drinks at the other end of the bar, and the look on his face suggested he'd heard every word. "Emily," he said quietly, approaching his new wife. "Maybe we should—" "Oh, there's my handsome husband." Emily threw her arms around his neck, clearly more drunk than I'd initially thought. "Were you defending me to your mother again?" She gave me another look when I said we weren't having kids for at least 5 years. "We haven't discussed." "I know, baby, but she doesn't need to know that. Let her stew a bit. Maybe she'll back off if she thinks there won't be grandkids to manipulate anytime soon." James's jaw tightened. "She's not manipulative, Em. She's just excited about our future." "Oh, please. She's been trying to control you your whole life. Thank God you finally grew a spine and stood up to her about the wedding venue." I watched James's face change, confusion replacing irritation. "What are you talking about? Mom loved this venue. She's the one who suggested it." Emily laughed, that tinkling fake laugh she'd perfected in high school. "That's what I let her think. I knew if I showed her the other venues first and acted disappointed, she'd suggest this one to make me happy. She's so predictable." The silence that followed was deafening. James stared at his new wife like he was seeing her for the first time. The bridesmaids suddenly found their phones very interesting. "You manipulated my mother?" James's voice was low. "Dangerous." Emily must have sensed she'd gone too far because she immediately backtracked. "Manipulated is a strong word. I just guided the situation. On our wedding day, you're standing here, at our wedding, bragging about manipulating my mother. James, you're overreacting." "Am I? What else have you guided, Emily?" The tension at the bar was palpable. Emily's bridesmaids began to scatter, suddenly remembering they needed to be elsewhere. I should have walked away too, but I couldn't move. This was the first time I'd ever seen anyone challenge Emily directly, and I was transfixed. "James, honey, let's not do this here," Emily said, her voice switching to sweet and placating. She reached for his arm, but he stepped back. "No, I think here is exactly where we should do this. You just admitted to manipulating my mother at our wedding. What else should I know about?" Emily's eyes darted around, taking in the growing audience. Several guests had noticed the tension and were pretending not to watch while absolutely watching. "You're making a scene." "I'm making a scene?" James laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That's rich, coming from someone who just spent 10 minutes trash-talking my mother to anyone who would listen." I was venting. Every bride vents about her in-laws. It's normal. Calling her a controlling nightmare is normal. Saying she has no life outside of being a grandmother is normal. Emily's face went white. "How did you—" "I have ears, Emily, and apparently so did half the reception during your little kitchen door conference." This was spiraling fast. Part of me, the part that had been ignored and dismissed for 28 years, wanted to watch it burn. But another part, the part that remembered Emily as a giggling toddler who used to follow me around the house, made me step forward. "Hey, maybe we should all take a breath," I started. Emily whirled on me. "Oh, now you want to get involved? Where was this concern when you were sulking about your table assignment?" "Emily," James warned. But she was on a roll now, champagne and anger loosening her tongue. "No, I'm sick of this. My own brother has been moping around all night like a kicked puppy because he's not the center of attention for once. God forbid one day not be about Edward and his hurt feelings." "One day?" I couldn't help the incredulous laugh that escaped. "Emily, when has any day ever been about me? When you graduated high school, Mom threw you a party for 50 people. When I graduated college, I got a card. When you got your first job, Dad took the whole family to Morton's. When I got promoted to senior analyst, no one even noticed. Maybe because being a senior analyst isn't that impressive," she shot back. "Some of us actually achieve things worth celebrating." The words hung in the air like a slap. Even James looked shocked. "Wow," I said quietly. "You really believe that, don't you? You really think you're better than everyone else?" "I don't think it," Emily said, lifting her chin. "I know it. I've worked harder, achieved more, and made something of myself. What have you done, Edward? You're 28 years old, living in a one-bedroom apartment, driving a 10-year-old Honda, still single, still bitter, still blaming everyone else for your mediocrity." Each word was a carefully aimed arrow, designed to hurt, and they did. But they also did something else. They freed me. Because in that moment, listening to my sister eviscerate me in front of her wedding guests, I realized something. I'd spent my entire life seeking approval from people who were never going to give it. My parents, who only had eyes for Emily, Emily herself, who saw me as nothing more than an inconvenience. You're right, I said, and Emily blinked in surprise. I am mediocre, I'm average, I'm nothing special, but you know what? At least I'm not cruel. At least I don't build myself up by tearing other people down. At least I don't manipulate people who love me to get what I want. Edward, my mother's voice cut through. She and Dad had finally noticed the commotion and were hurrying over. And you know what else? I continued, on a roll now. That woman you've been bad-mouthing all night, Margaret, she's been nothing but gracious to you. She welcomed you into her family, helped plan this wedding, gave you her blessing. And this is how you repay her? By calling her an old bat? By plotting to keep her away from her future grandchildren? Edward, stop, Dad commanded. You're ruining your sister's wedding. I turned to look at him, really look at him. I'm ruining it? Did you not hear what she just said to me? Did you not hear how she talks about James's family? You're drunk, Mom said dismissively. You should go. You're kicking me out? I couldn't believe it, except I absolutely could. Your daughter just called me a mediocre, bitter failure, and you're kicking Emmy out? You're causing a scene, Mom hissed. This is Emily's special day. I looked at my parents, really looked at them. Mom in her coordinated mother of the bride dress, Dad in his expensive suit, both of them looking at me like I was the problem. Like I'd always been the problem. You know what? You're right. I should go. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the garter I'd caught earlier, tossing it onto the bar. Wouldn't want to cause any more scenes at Emily's special day. I started to walk away, then stopped. There was one more thing I needed to do. Actually, wait, I almost forgot. I walked over to the gift table, where the silver-wrapped box I'd brought sat among the other presents. I picked it up, feeling its weight. 3 weeks of saving, 3 weeks of overtime to buy something nice enough for Emily's standards. What are you doing? Emily demanded. Taking back my gift, consider it a wedding present to myself, the gift of finally being done with this. You can't just take back a gift, Mom gasped. Watch me. I tucked the box under my arm. Oh, and Emily? That mother-in-law you think is so controlling and horrible? She knew exactly what kind of person you were from the start. That's why the engagement ring James gave you? It's not his grandmother's dot. She told him to buy you a new one because she didn't think you deserved the family heirloom. Emily's hand flew to her ring, her face cycling through disbelief, hurt, and rage. That's not true, James said. But his voice was uncertain. Ask her yourself, I said. Ask Margaret why she really kept the family ring in her safe. The reception had gone completely silent. Everyone was watching now, all pretense of not paying attention abandoned. I saw Margaret standing by the door, her husband's arm around her shoulders. She gave me the slightest nod. You're lying, Emily said, but her voice shook. You're just trying to hurt me because you're jealous. You've always been jealous. Jealous? I laughed. Of what? Your inability to maintain a genuine relationship? Your constant need for validation? The fact that you've built your entire personality around being better than everyone else? No, Emily. I'm not jealous. I'm just done. I looked at James, who seemed to be having an existential crisis in real time. Good luck, man. You're going to need it. Then I walked toward the exit, the gift box under my arm, my head held high for the first time in years. Behind me, I heard the explosion of voices, Emily shrieking, my parents trying to do damage control, James demanding answers, but I didn't look back. Margaret Richardson was still by the door. As I passed, she said quietly, "The ring is in my safe. It always will be." Smart woman, I replied. Outside, the night air was cool and clean. I could hear the music from the reception, some upbeat pop song that seemed absurdly cheerful given what had just happened. I sat in my car for a moment, the gift box in my passenger seat, and waited for the guilt to hit. It didn't come. Instead, I felt a light, like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't even know was there, and I'd finally set it down. My phone was already buzzing with texts, but I didn't look at them. I knew what they'd say. How could you? How dare you? You've ruined everything. But I hadn't ruined everything. Emily had done that all on her own. I just finally stopped pretending not to see it. I drove home in silence, the wrapped gift-writing shotgun like a symbol of my newfound freedom. When I got to my mediocre one-bedroom apartment, I unwrapped it carefully. The crystal vase caught the light from my kitchen window, throwing rainbows on the wall. It was beautiful, too beautiful to have been wasted on people who wouldn't have appreciated it anyway. I set it on my dining table, then poured myself a drink, not whiskey this time, but water. And I needed to be clear-headed for whatever came next, because something told me this wasn't over. I was right. The calls started around midnight. First Mom, leaving increasingly frantic voicemails, then Dad, his messages shorter but no less angry. Emily didn't call, but I got texts from numbers I didn't recognize, probably her bridesmaids doing her dirty work. I turned off my phone and went to bed. The next morning I woke to sunlight streaming through my windows and birds chirping outside. It was peaceful, normal. For a moment I forgot about the wedding, then I turned on my phone. 47 missed calls, over 100 texts, and surprisingly, a Facebook friend request from Margaret Richardson. I accepted it immediately and found a message waiting. Edward, I wanted to thank you for your honesty last night. It confirmed what I've suspected for some time. James came to our house at 2 a.m. We had a long talk. The marriage is not off to the start any of us hoped for, but perhaps this truth was necessary. You're a brave young man. Your parents don't deserve you. I sat with that message for a long time, reading it over and over. A stranger, someone who'd known me for all of 5 minutes, had shown me more validation than my own family had in years. The texts from my mom were predictable. How could you do this to your sister? You've ruined her life. She's devastated. The reception ended early because of you. Dad's were shorter but cut deeper. Disappointed in you. We need to talk about your behavior. You owe everyone an apology. But it was Aunt Linda's text that made me smile. Holy shit, kid. That was epic. Emily locked herself in the bridal suite and wouldn't come out. James spent the night at his parents'. Your mom is doing damage control with everyone. I haven't had this much entertainment at a family event in years. Proud of you for finally standing up for yourself. Brunch next week? I replied yes to Linda and ignored the rest. Around noon, there was a knock at my door. I half expected it to be my parents, coming to lecture me in person, but it was James. He looked rough, still in his wedding clothes, but wrinkled, his tie gone, his hair a mess. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside, and he entered my apartment, looking around with surprise. "This is nice. Not what you expected from Emily's mediocre failure of a brother?" He winced. "She didn't mean that." "Yes, she did, but you didn't come here to defend Emily." James slumped onto my couch. "No, I came because I need to know. Was what you said true? About my grandmother's ring?" I sat across from him. "Ask your mother." I did. She confirmed it. She said she had concerns about Emily from the start. Said she reminded her of my brother's ex-wife. He laughed bitterly. I defended Emily. Told my mom she was being paranoid. Turns out she was right. "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. "This wasn't how I wanted things to go." "Really? Because it seemed like you'd been waiting for that moment for a while." I thought about it. Maybe I was. But not consciously. It just all came out. 28 years of being invisible, being less than, being told I wasn't good enough. And then to be literally seated with strangers at my own sister's wedding? Something just snapped. James nodded slowly. "She told me you weren't interested in being in the wedding party. Said you preferred to just be a guest. She never asked me." I'm starting to realize there's a lot she didn't tell me, or told me differently. He rubbed his face. "We're supposed to leave for Bali tomorrow, the honeymoon. Are you going?" "I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. The woman I married yesterday, I don't think I know her at all." We sat in silence for a moment. Then James asked, "Has she always been like this?" "Yes," I said simply. "She's always been the golden child who could do no wrong. And she learned early that she could manipulate situations to her advantage. Our parents enabled it, rewarded it even. Every achievement was celebrated, every manipulation was overlooked, every cruel comment was excused. But you turned out different." I had to. I was the control group in the Emily experiment, the one who showed just how special she was by comparison. James's phone buzzed. He looked at it and sighed. "Emily, she's been texting all morning. Alternating between anger and playing the victim. Sounds about right. She wants me to make you apologize." I laughed. "Of course she does. I'm not going to." He stood up. "I need to figure out what I'm going to do about all of this. But I wanted you to know that I don't blame you. If anything, you might have saved me from years of manipulation I wouldn't have seen coming." After he left, I sat in my quiet apartment thinking about the ripple effects of last night. I'd blown up my family relationships, possibly destroyed my sister's marriage, and alienated my parents probably forever. And yet, I felt free. The next few weeks were a study in contrasts. My phone stayed silent from my parents and Emily. Apparently, I'd been officially exiled from the Morrison family, but I heard from others. Aunt Linda and I had that brunch, where she filled me in on the gossip. James had gone to Bali alone, using the honeymoon as a time to think. Emily had moved back in with our parents temporarily. The wedding was the talk of their social circle, with opinions divided between those who thought I was a hero and those who thought I was a villain. "The best part," Linda said, sipping her mimosa, "was when your mother tried to spin it at her book club, said you'd had too much to drink and didn't mean any of it." Then Margaret Richardson walked in. They go to the same club, and very politely corrected the record. "Your mother nearly choked on her scone." Margaret and I had exchanged a few Facebook messages. She was surprisingly warm and funny, nothing like the controlling nightmare Emily had described. She sent me photos of her actual garden. She was an avid gardener, and recipes she thought I might like. It was the kind of easy, supportive relationship I'd always wanted with my own mother. Like, 3 weeks after the wedding, James filed for annulment. The grounds were fraud. Apparently, Emily had lied about several things during their courtship, including her student loan debt and her relationship with an ex-boyfriend who she'd been texting throughout their engagement. The ring revelation had prompted James to do some digging, and he hadn't liked what he'd found. Emily showed up at my apartment on a Thursday evening, looking like she'd aged 5 years in 3 weeks. Her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she wore sweatpants, something I'd never seen her in public in. "You destroyed my life," she said without preamble. "No, Emily, you destroyed your own life. I just stopped letting you destroy mine." She pushed past me into my apartment. "James won't even talk to me. His whole family has turned against me. Mom and Dad are mortified. Their friends are all gossiping." "Do you have any idea what you've done? Do you have any idea what you've done for years? The constant dismissal, the cruel comments, the manipulation?" "I was just better at things than you," she protested. "It's not my fault Mom and Dad recognize that." "No, you were just better at playing the game, at being what they wanted, but that's not the same as being better." Emily looked around my apartment, taking in the comfortable furniture, the books, the plants, the crystal vase on my dining table. "This is what you wanted, this mediocre little life?" "This isn't mediocre, it's mine. I earned it, I chose it, and I'm happy with it. Can you say the same about anything in your life?" She was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a smaller voice than I'd ever heard from her, she said, "I don't know how to be anything else." It was probably the most honest thing she'd ever said to me. "Then maybe it's time to learn," I suggested. She left without another word. I didn't hear from her again, though Linda told me she'd started therapy. Maybe there was hope for her, maybe not. Either way, it wasn't my problem anymore. 6 months later, I got a call from Dad. Mom was sick, nothing life-threatening, but enough to scare them. He wanted to reconcile. I agreed to coffee, nothing more. We met at a neutral location, and he looked older, more tired than I remembered. "Your mother misses you," he said. "Does she? Or does she miss having both her children to show off?" He didn't answer, which was answer enough. "I'm not coming back to the way things were," I told him. "If you want a relationship with me, it has to be on equal terms. No more Emily worship. No more treating me like the consolation prize." "She's getting divorced," he said quietly. "The annulment went through." "I know. She blames you." "She blames everyone but herself. That's her problem, not mine." We parted with a handshake and a promise to try. Small steps. A year after the wedding, I got an invitation in the mail. James was getting married again, to a woman he'd met in Bali, ironically enough. The invitation included a handwritten note. "You'll be at table 1 this time, front and center. You earned it." I went to that wedding. It was smaller, more intimate, held in his parents' backyard. Margaret hugged me like an old friend, told me I looked well. I sat with James's family, was included in the toasts, danced with his sister. It was everything a family wedding should be. During the reception, Margaret pulled me aside. "I wanted to show you something." She opened her purse and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a beautiful antique ring, his grandmother's ring. I gave it to James for Lisa. She deserves it. She's genuine, kind, unpretentious, everything Emily wasn't. "It's beautiful," I said. "Family heirlooms should go to family," she said, looking at me meaningfully. "Real family, the kind you choose, not just the kind you're born into." As I drove home that night, I thought about the last year. I'd lost my biological family, for the most part. But I'd gained something else: self-respect, genuine friendships, and the knowledge that I was enough just as I was. No golden child achievements necessary. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I checked it at a red light. "This is Emily. I heard you went to James's wedding. I hope you're happy." I deleted it without responding and drove home to my mediocre apartment, my mediocre life, my mediocre happiness that turned out to be not so mediocre after all. Sometimes the best gift you can give yourself is the freedom to stop trying to earn love from people who don't know how to give it. Emily had been the golden child, but I'd found something better, the courage to walk away from the spotlight I was never meant to stand in anyway. And that crystal vase, it still sits on my dining table, catching the light every morning, throwing rainbows on the wall, a reminder that sometimes the best gifts are the ones we give ourselves.